My intent is to open his eyes and make him see that he's ill. There is something wrong. This type of behavior is not acceptable. It's not okay. He is ruining me, himself, his family, and our family.
In October, Truth Winds out released a major investigation which revealed notorious ex-gay activist Christopher Snake Oil Doyle was credibly accused of abuse against his now ex-wife Sherry Montgomery, her mother, and his children. This week, I interviewed Christopher Doyle's niece, Allie Doyle. Allie told me that she believes Sherry's version of events regarding the divorce, including the reported abuse. Allie also revealed that she believes her ex-gay uncle is still gay and won't admit it.
So tell me, how are you related to Chris Doyle?
I am his niece. I am his sister's daughter. I am the first and oldest grandchild of his parents.
Originally, how was your relationship with Christopher Doyle?
He was my favorite uncle. I mean, he was the one that he was always logical. He was funny. He was my confidant in a lot of ways up until really the divorce started.
When was the first time you became aware of Chris Doyle's behavior towards Sherry?
She was sobbing on the phone, and I had never heard my aunt like this before, ever. Sherry and I are very close. She proceeded to tell me that Chris and her were getting divorced. She knew it meant a lot to her. He had been abusing her for years. We talked for about an hour, and I told her, I said, listen, as far as you and Chris go, I am Switzerland. I am going to remain neutral. I will tell you if I think you did something wrong, and I will tell him if I think he did something wrong. I love you both, but I'm going to be honest with you, Sherry. I care more about your kids than I care about you. So no offense, but if you do something to harm those kids or he does something to harm those kids, I am going to turn into a mama bear for them.
And did you believe Sherry right away? What was your initial reaction?
Sherry had never been one to lie to me. She had never been one to over-exaggerate. She had never been one to... I can't say anything else except she doesn't really lie. She and I had a relationship just like I thought my uncle and I had a relationship, that we were very open with each other. We were very to the point. We were very blunt. We were very truthful. But I said, man, if he did all of this stuff, that's bad. Like, that's really wrong. And you can love him and still tell him he's wrong at the same time. It's not so far-fetched to believe that he could. And I was disappointed and I was sad and I was very upset and I wanted to help. I wanted to help him, but I knew he wouldn't talk to me. I sent him a text message at one of the pit stops I took and I said, hey, Sherry, talk to me. I don't know what's true. I said, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what you have to say. I said, but she did talk to me and she did tell me a lot and I have a lot of questions. And he never responded to me. And instead, I got a text message from my grandmother who proceeded to fight with me. And I guess it was around the same time that what happened in Florida happened.
You talk about what happened in Florida. When did you learn about that? And what do you know about that?
I learned about it from my grandma telling me that they had to bail him out. And I said, bail him out from what? I said, he was in jail. What did he go to jail for? And she wouldn't tell me what the charges were. She wouldn't tell me why he got arrested, just that it was in Florida and they had to drive to Florida to go get him out.
What happened was quite violent. He allegedly, according to the court records, pushed Sherry and her mother, and the kids were terrified.
They were on vacation. Sherry's family has a vacation home in Florida, and I don't remember exactly what Chris got upset about. But he started fighting with Sherry about something, and she didn't want to fight in front of the kids. So she asked to go into another room to talk with Chris. I think it was like a change of plans or something. I'm not sure, but he was very upset. And eventually it got to the point, I think, where one of the kids went and got Sherry's mom to try and calm him down because he was screaming so loudly at Sherry that the kids could hear him. And Sherry's mom came in and he was in, I don't think he shoved Sherry, but he was definitely in her face, screaming at her, pointing at her, this is your fault. These plans changed because of you, blaming everything on Sherry, when I think it was something that which just like, it just kind of happened. It wasn't really anyone's fault. It was just kind of like an inconvenience. But then Sherry came in, or Sherry's mom, Betsy, I think her name is, came in, and she was trying to talk Chris down. Like, Chris, it's okay. Like, we will figure this out. Just calm down. And he wasn't having any of it. So Betsy, I guess, got too close to Chris, not realizing that she didn't even know at that point that Chris had ever been physical to Sherry. She found out on that day everything that had been going on after Chris left. But she tried to put a hand on his shoulder to try and comfort him and calm him down. And he turned around and shoved her onto the coffee table. And then all the kids saw it. And then the oldest kid, I don't want to say any of the children's names, but the oldest child called 911.
This was part of a pattern, though. This was not the first time he exhibited these behaviors. Is that correct?
Towards Betsy, yes. Towards Sherry, no. And I don't think up until they separated, he really ever did anything to the kids either. It was mostly Sherry taking most of it for everyone else.
So you tried to be Switzerland. What changed? When did you decide Sherry is being wronged here and what she's saying about Christopher is true?
I'd say I still am Switzerland because I'm not really on Sherry's side. I'm on the side of the kids. And to me, what he's doing is hurting his kids.
If he were here today and you could speak to him about the situation, what would you say to Christopher Doyle right now?
You know, I still love him. And he may hate me. He may think that I am doing things to hurt him. But that's not my intent. My intent is the same thing I've tried to do with my mom for 17 years, is to open his eyes and make him see that he's ill. There is something wrong. This type of behavior is not acceptable. It's not okay. And for you to treat other people the way that you are, I don't care who you are. I would do the same thing. I would try my best to do whatever I could to open your eyes. And if that means showing other people the type of therapist that you are and the type of dad that you claim to be, which is not true, and to make everything around you shatter to the point that you hit rock bottom and realize that this is not okay, then I will do it. If I need to be that guy for you to realize that you have lost your way, I will do it. And it sucks. I get a lot of threats from my family about it, but they raised me to do the right thing, even when it's hard. And to me, showing him that this is not okay behavior, even if I'm the only one screaming it, is what I got to do.
The family has been making threats towards you?
Yeah, your article was a lot of drama in our family. I reposted it on my Facebook and got some threats, so that was fun.
Like, what are they trying to say they're going to do?
That Chris is going to sue me for defamation, which, you know, you can't really do. Everything I'm saying, I know to be true. They've threatened that my action, not really a threat, but my actions are going to destroy his career and then hurt the kids, because they know that the kids are my number one priority. So anytime they can, they'll be like, you know, what you're doing is going to hurt the children. You know, what you're doing is going to take money away from them. My response to them was, well, maybe Chris should have thought about that before he delved into these kinds of practices, because it's not my fault that he is being outed.
Speaking of healthy families, he runs the Institute for Healthy Families. Is this someone
Hilarious.
who should? Yes. Is this somebody you should be running the Institute for Healthy Families?
Now, no, you can't give advice to people for a healthy family when your family is literally in shambles. You got to go work on yourself before you can work on other people.
I wrote about in the piece for Truth Wins Out about a guy named Charles Chuck Peters.
My name is Chuck Peters, and I am an ex-queer and a proud ex-gay. Hip, hip, hooray for ex-gays! Hip, hip, hooray for ex-gays! Hip, hip, hooray for ex-gays!
Christopher was calling him boo-boo, and Chuck Peters was calling him daddy. What do you know about that relationship, and what role did Chuck Peters have in the family?
I was there for a Christmas, I believe. I think it was Christmas or Thanksgiving. And Chuck was there. I didn't even know him. But I was like, oh, it's your friend? And then Sherry told me it's also his client. And I went, that's a bit odd. Because I was in chiropractic school. So I'm like learning about, ethics with professionals and stuff at that time. And I'm like, odd. When he was there, a couple of the kids sat on his lap and they had this look on their face like they were very uncomfortable. But Chuck would not let them leave his lap and was like snuggling them, like really, I don't want to say against their will, but they definitely did not want to be in his lap. So I'm like, I would come up with a reason for them to get out of Chuck's lap. And if he didn't let them, be like, Chuck, that is my cousin. I would like to play with them. Let them go, please. And we would have a little bit of a staring contest for a hot minute. And I don't know if you can tell, but I am a fiery, scary redhead. So when I need to turn it on, I will. So I kind of glared at him a little bit and then he'd let him go. Well, then he asked me for a massage. And I'm like, all right, well, that's not adjusting. So whatever, I can get the muscle work practice in, it's fine. So he asked me for a massage and then he's like, oh, do you do butt massages? And I went, well, if your glutes have knots in them, I can treat them. I can check for you. But if they don't, then I'm just going to leave them alone. And he's like, oh, okay, well, can you check? And I said, sure. So I checked and then I was like, oh, they feel pretty good. You don't really have many knots in your glutes. So I'm just going to go back to where I felt the other knots. He's like, can you just like do some more on my butt, please? And I was like, Chuck, if you keep insisting, you're not getting any more. So no. I cannot. And he just kept insisting and insisting. And then I was like, no, we're done.
Sounds kind of creepy.
It was very creepy. And then we went to Barnes and Noble, but he tried to grab my hand walking on the way to Barnes and Noble. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know you. I don't remember how old I was. I think I was 24, 25, something like that. And I'm like, bro, no, I don't know you. And he's like, oh, come on, just loosen up. You can hold my hand. I'm like, no. I'm not holding your hand. And then he went to try and grab my hand. And I said, excuse me, do you not realize what the word no means? No. N-O. Go hold someone else's hand. I'm not holding your hand. So then he went and held Chris's hand instead.
He held his therapist's hand, who were both presenting as ex-gay activists?
Yeah. But he kept bringing me over these weird books that were like, exploring my sexuality as a kid, or like kids books that had to do with sexuality. And I was like, look what I found, Allie. And I'm like,
that's
great.
Peculiar.
I don't care. Like literally, I was like, can you just leave me alone? I'm enjoying my time in the bookstore. Like, leave me alone. But he just proceeded to bother me. And I don't know if it was because he kind of could tell that I was just like, dude, you're weird.
So is there anything else you'd like to add about the situation before we conclude?
I think it recently came out that he was claiming his business as a not-for-profit or something, and that hasn't been the case, I think, since 2020.
He sounds like a narcissist.
Yeah, and I never saw it before the divorce started. He never used to act like this, at least not to us. I mean, even when things would get heated with my family, he was the peacekeeper. He and I were the peacekeepers. So I'm not real sure what happened with COVID to make him just kind of like switch, but it's almost like Jekyll and Hyde. I don't even recognize him anymore. Based on what I know from how I used to act in college, I think I am LGBTQ myself. I think he is, and he won't admit it. And I think a lot of that has to do with his parents, my grandparents.
Help us fight ex-gay lies. Truth Wins Out monitors, researches, and exposes the ex-gay conversion industry. Support us and learn more at truthwinsout.org.